Welcome to another episode of How Long Until I Wash My Hair. We might be pushing a week, you guys. And is there an end in sight? No. You like that switch? This is fun. There's like a new feature on the new Mac operating system, and it's called Continuity Cam, and you basically use your iPhone as your webcam. So like the idea is you would line it up like where your webcam would be, but then it doesn't have to stay that way. You can move it around and bring it up to your fucking face, dude. What's going on here with this dirty ass hair? All right. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to use that as like another cam, like a severe overhead cam. Like when you look over and you're like, this is how serious I am. Anyway. So, yeah, dude, you just put it on a fucking little mini tripod. And then there you go. Okay. I don't know how I'll fully use that, but I also have this other. I got a little switcher from one of my Patreon subscribers, dude. I love it. It actually has helped give a more three-dimensional fucking feel to this thing. But so anyhow. That was me talking about a podcast related thing in a positive way, not in a, I'm going to break this and then I'm going to break that and then kill everything that has a pulse. Okay. So, update on my med withdrawals. So I had Zoloft withdrawals and still have. They say they can last anywhere from this is like a fucking beaten to death hack premise, but you go into WebMD and you look something up and then it's the worst decision you've ever made. Same goes for withdrawals and getting off of medication. Not like, oh, I have a pain here. What does that mean? Dude, I looked up Zoloft withdrawals and they were like, well, you could feel like those little zappy electric buzzy things, which I've had literally every 10 minutes for the last 2 weeks. All the way up to seizure and death. You're like, great, that's perfect. I'm glad I did that. Now I'm going to think that every time I get one of those electric zappy things, that is going to lead to a seizure, immediately followed by death, then followed by another seizure that brings me back to life momentarily, only so the next seizure can kill me. That thought process has been going through my mind so the zaps are every 10 minutes, every 10 minutes and 1 second of the day. It's getting a little better. The electric zaps are not as concentrated here where they're like, and they're so like, they're not hard zaps like a taser would be. And I know this because I've tased myself. I can't remember who, all right, story time. So, a long time ago, someone got a bunch of tasers at the Comedy Store. This is back when the Comedy Store was not fully open for business, like 8 audience members in a night, that kind of shit. So no one was, in attendance. We're smoking cigarettes inside and doing whatever the fuck we wanted to do, and I will go down saying this until the end of time. Those were the glory days. Those were the best days at the Comedy Store, minus the 80s when Pryor and Kinnison and all those guys there. the early 2000s into right before the second comedy boom, dude, that's when the Comedy Store was the shit. Better than when it was sold out every night. I was in both, all right? I was there in the early 2000s, and I was there when it was packed every night, doing main room spots and full OR at like 11:30 or even sometimes 12:30 in the morning. And the energy, it was great. It was nice. It was this, it was that. There was still nothing like the feeling of, is this place just going to collapse in on itself at any moment? And can we really just do whatever we want on stage and smoke cigarettes and drink? And like, I used to work the parking lot, I would literally drink while I was parking the cars. Not like get drunk, but like, at the end of the shift or near the end of the shift, and you'd always push near towards middle, you'd get a shift drink. And they did away with that eventually because that's how little money the Comedy Store was making. But they were like, yeah, we can't afford to give you guys one shitty beer a night. So while we did have that, I would take my shift drink, and I was like, I mean, I don't need to wait until I clock out at 12:30. I can just take a couple of sips and put it down, and then just, go move Sebastian's car. Oh, Caparola needs to leave. Yeah, just grab that, and literally none of the comics ever were like, whoa, did you take a sip of that beer before you move my... They were like, oh, dude, getting that drink in early. Anyway, man, good to see you. See you tomorrow. That was the end of that. And then one time, one of the managers who... just fucking loser, this guy. He was like... His name was Evan. He was like a failed actor guy. I think he was in like a soap opera for a minute or some shit. He was a shift manager, and shift managers never lasted longer than 2 weeks because they always made the cardinal sin of trying to change the way the Comedy Store was, in that they would try and implement a rule because they would get a job there and then they would think, there are certainly a lot less rules than my old job managing another place open to the public. I should maybe implement a rule. There are literally 0 rules. Maybe there should be 1 rule. And then the comics were like, no, fuck you, dude. We're not. No. We will make your life a living hell, and then you will quit or get fired. And what was funny is a lot of times the managers would get fired for trying to do their job, which was the fucking best. Because in their minds, they were just like, wait, what did I do wrong? And we're like, the right thing. That's what you did wrong. Get the fuck out of here. Go manage a Cheesecake Factory. So eventually, Evan decided to not really do his job that much, and he would just sit in his office, the manager's office, and just look at sneaker websites. And this is before like the sneaker thing was really crazy, like really crazy. He was still like, oh, look at the new Nikes and the Jordans and this. And this motherfucker would just spend his whole shift doing that. And for us, we were like, perfect. Now we can get back to running the place. And I knew he would spend all his time looking at sneakers, not because of the few times I walked in to the manager's office and was like, fucking assholes looking at sneakers again. Because every single comic, like paid regular or door guy comic, or one of the waitresses would go in to get something done, every one of them would be like, Evan's just looking at sneakers again. I need to, know if I should change the sign or close out my tables. Or everybody. And for us, we're great. Yeah, do that. And then one day, this fucking asshole, while I am trying to enjoy a shift beverage, an ice cold, probably Heineken or Newcastle or something at the time, whatever I was drinking, this fucking dickhead comes over and goes, hey, are you drinking while parking the cars? And then I looked at him and I was like, hey, man, yeah. Not only yeah, but do you have a fucking problem with that? Like, I've been doing this for 6 months already. Not even that. Whatever. It was like 2 or 3 months. I mean, he did last there for a little while. Maybe it was 6 months. Maybe I did that the whole time he was managing there. But I was like, yeah, I am. And he was like, what are you, fucking crazy? I go, dude, someone needs me to move their car. Are we done here? Holding the beer. He's like, no, we're not done here. You can't do that. That's illegal. I go, first of all, this is private property. And these cars aren't leaving. It's not like I'm taking them for a fucking cruise around Sunset Boulevard. I'm just moving it like fucking Tetris pieces, all within the lot. And he looks at me and he was like, still. And he like, you know what? Go. I'm going to move the car. I swear to you. And I've probably told this story on a podcast before, but I swear to you, and this is how perfect the Comedy Store used to be. It didn't occur to him to be like, you're fired or like go home or clock out or anything like that. He just said, ugh, I'll go move the car. It was amazing. And I was like, I mean, yeah, sure, man. If that's, yeah, great. Hey, cheers. Thank you. And then, and it was right around the time, like, a bunch of comics were about to leave. You know, like, you get to, like, 11:30, midnight. A lot of comics who have gone on are kind of still hanging around. And then at some point around, like, 11:30 or 12:15, the lot just empties. First it's full, and then it's too full, and you're like, fucking everybody leave. And then everyone just leaves at once because, like, I'm done hanging out. And the last few comics that sort of just got off stage are like, I'm leaving too. And then everyone's like, oh, everyone else is leaving. Boom, we're all gone. And he went and moved that car, and then I think worked the lot for me for the next 45 minutes. While I was on the clock. He never told me to clock out, so guess what? I didn't. And I remember just chilling, watching him move the cars, and they're like, one of the comics came by, was like, hey man, why is Evan moving the cars? I'm like, get this. He says I can't drink while I move the cars, loser. And he was like, yeah, but you're not leaving the lot. That's what I said. So he worked a lot for me for the rest of that day. And that, in a nutshell, was like how few rules there were there, and how everyone just sort of leaned further in that direction. You know, that was a perfect moment for management to be like, hey, this ain't cool. How about this new rule where you don't drink and drive? Instead, it was like, look, you keep drinking. I'll go do your job as the manager. And it might have been because he was, who knows, maybe he felt a little guilty for like, fuck, I don't really do anything except look at sneakers. So he did it for me. And then, you know, there was a lesson that I learned in that moment and it was basically this. It was, I will keep doing that every day. And I did. And eventually he stopped trying to stop me. The only thing that really stopped me was when, you know, they got rid of the shift drinks and everyone was upset. And we were like, dude, this is the one thing. We already get underpaid. This was the one thing we could look forward to at the end of a bullshit shift. Now you're taking it from us. So, you know, we all sort of, I don't know if we got together and had a powwow about this, but we got together and we were like, let's just steal a beer from the club. I mean, duh. And then that's what we did for 7 years. We just took what we wanted. And the bartender, various bartenders over the years were just like, well, it's whatever. I don't care anyway either. And we just essentially drank for free at the club. Like, you know, you'd take a 10 or a 20 and, you know, give it to the bartender as a tip. And then you would just drink on the house. It was fucking awesome. And management didn't care. Evan eventually left to, like, I think he moved somewhere to be a bigger loser or whatever. I think he went to become like a newscaster or something. I don't know. He was a douchebag. a lot of those shift managers were, and I mean, I'm telling you, the best ones were the ones that just were like, hey man, I'm just here to collect my money and I don't give a fuck what you guys do. They understood on a fundamental level that the inmates were in the asylum, and that's what was great. That's what was great about that era there. And we were truly, truly, truly free on stage. Truly. We still are now. It there were no real rules like, hey, don't take risks or blow up on the crowd or really just fully emote the way you would want. And that's one of the best things about the Comedy Store in that time was you never paused for a minute and thought, wait, should I be a professional? That's what the other clubs were for, man. That's what the road was for. That's what all that professional stuff. The Comedy Store was the gym, dude. That's where you went to fuck up and, not really play by the rules so you could learn how to break them. You knew what the rules were, but you're like, this is where I bend them and figure things out and really learn crowd work and stuff and really just put it out there and just sink sometimes where you're like, I'm just going to do 15 minutes of crowd work. Let's see what happens. And you would fail. And sometimes the crowds would be so dead and so shitty that you were like, well, I mean, material would feel even weirder to do. And that's when you really got in there and like, you went way beyond the what do you do for a living or are you guys dating? And you got into it with people. Like you would get to know them and really figure out a conversation. And then you would go to the other table and then just learn to tie it all in together. And like, I mean, that's where that shit was done. It's not like now where you just show up at a club just to, I want to get the crowd work clip, and you set up your camera and you're like, all right, I'm going to do some bits. And then the next 4 minutes are like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, uh-huh. So, and then something not funny. Oh, it's gut wrenching to watch those things. Gut wrenching. It just makes me want to vomit on my phone. But yeah, those were the days, man, where you could, and I don't want to sound like back in the old days, because it was like no other day or time. It always was in a vacuum. It always was its own thing operating outside of any sort of era, any sort of time period. It was just the Comedy Store. It was you walked off of the Sunset Strip and you were transported to some other weird limbo time where it felt like, actually, limbo is a good way to describe it because it just felt like you were in a time period where everyone was being punished for who knows what reason. Comics that fucked up too much or did too many drugs and are just walking around the building like a fucking ghost. Those were other lessons you learned where you're like, don't end up like that guy. And people that didn't feel like they were getting enough spots, and just people with anger problems and people with depression. Just the Comedy Store just let you be, and it never helped you. It just was like, you can be whatever you want, and you can go in any direction that takes you. If you're ambitious and you want to figure it out, this is a place for that. If you are here with problems and you're not ready to work on them, this is a place where you are allowed to fucking plummet to your own demise. And that's the entertainment industry in a microcosm. Was, hey, come on in, do what you want, and if it works for us, we'll take you and you can make a lot more money. We'll scale that shit right up for you. But if it doesn't, that's also not our problem. We will pretend to care, and ultimately we don't, because the person right next to you with more ambition or more focus or a little bit less of a drinking problem or a more fun drinking problem, like, we'll just snatch him or her up and take them just right up. And those are lessons, man. Those are lessons you learn at places like that, where it's no one's really there to help you. You got to help yourself. And I wouldn't have gotten good at stand-up. I wouldn't have learned how to survive in a like cutthroat environment if it wasn't for that place in that time period. 2000, let's just say 2000 to 2012, 13, something like that. Yeah. They're around it was I was still drinking. Well, no, it was even after I stopped drinking, like 2012. It was still, there weren't a lot of rules, but there were some. We had real door guys at the time, and there were like we couldn't smoke cigarettes inside anymore. Actually, no, maybe like 2010. Maybe the real the free true freedom era of the Comedy Store ended probably 2010. And honestly, thank God. Thank God it did for my own sake, but dude, it was I mean, I knew the code to the liquor locker. And it wasn't even like I wasn't even the only one. Remember, like the bartenders there were like, "Yeah, no, just go grab one. I don't have any up front. Just go get one." We truly ran that place, man, and it was great. The freedom to express yourself there, and then the friends that you made, because we're all in limbo together. We're all suffering together, and those things just weld together these bonds that just stay, man. Best era. It's the best era there. How did all of that shit start? The taser. So someone brought a bunch of tasers, and we were like, wait, are these like real, like weapons grade tasers or whatever the fuck? Like police, like you could really. We're like, no, they're like for fun tasers. A phrase rarely ever uttered, for fun tasers. And I was like, so you can't. And then one of the comes like, no, and then just tase himself in the thigh. I was like, gimme, I want tase, I want. And I was like, cool. And I was like, whoa, that was like a fucking jolt, but like it wasn't bad. And then I just we tased each other on stage. It was insane. What were the audience members thinking? We're like, why are they doing that? And the answer was because fuck you. That's why. That was the answer, ultimately. Why did the comic do that? Because of fuck you. How dare you even ask? Just sit there, watch the show. If you don't like it, go home. That was our attitude. And we were the door guys, too. So that was like our attitude, even in like an official capacity. Hey, the comic said, and you know what we say? Tough shit. Go home. Brian Holtzman used to say, you don't like it, put your head down and wait for the next comic. Like you were in class. Fucking Holtzman. If you want to know what the Comedy Store in that era was like personified, Brian Holtzman. He was the man, still is. I think he lives in Austin now. That dude, Comedy Store personified. Nowhere else are you developing an act like that, which is it's borderline not an act. It's as like close as you could come to just being truly free on stage. And those are the moments that really embody comedy as an art form. It's when you are watching someone just the shackles are off. They are just being themselves. It feels so uninhibited that you almost don't know it's like what's going to happen next. Even though a lot of the times they do know, but it took all those years of even them not knowing on stage to capture that, to bottle it, and then present it to you without any consequence. There were like any other comedy club would have been like, whoa, you're taking too many risks. That audience member didn't like it, and that means $19 less in alcohol for which I get it, it's a business, fine, but man, there was a sweet spot there where the Comedy Store essentially wasn't a business. It was just this place where we could go figure ourselves out in front of paying customers, and the place was just getting by on its own history and just barely enough money. And we benefited. We really benefited more than any other venue, I think, would have allowed for, and probably will ever allow for again. That those days are gone. And look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope those days aren't gone. I hope there's another venue right now that is like the classic comedy store where you can do that. And I'm not saying like, oh, a little black box theater where there's no real audience members. I mean a place where real audience members, where you can really get a good gauge for what's going to work in front of the real world, and what taking a risk is like, and feeling the consequences in front of a real world crowd. And that's what the store also gave you, more than just, some open mic where it's like, no, you can do whatever you want. But you're like, yeah, but in front of other comics. The store was people that lived in LA and tourists and stuff who just sometimes left horrified. And to us, that was just notch on the bedpost. Cool. I did that. That was great. That felt insane. What can I learn from that? Those were the days, man. Ask Ari, ask Renazizi, ask any of Holtzman, ask any of those guys, Don Barris, all those guys will tell you those were the best days. The best. Because the boom era, I mean, was awesome. Yeah, if you were just an audience member showing up, those lineups were just like, holy shit, it's killers from ba 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 ba. That's cool, but you're not going to see something truly memorable and out there, And a lot of those lineups you saw at the Laugh Factory and the Improv, they weren't special in that regard. And look, I was on those lineups. I'm not shitting on what they were. They were great for, like, especially with that many. I mean, you were getting bang for your buck. You walked in with $20-$25, you left with like $250-$350 worth of entertainment. And that's awesome. But in terms of breeding artists, not the same. Not the same. Disagree, agree, I don't care. I'm right. And things like that are why I know what a real taser versus a, just for fun taser feels like. And yeah, to loop it all back around, that's what those Zoloft withdrawals are doing to my fucking brain. They're giving it that, like, and for a second, that makes you feel like you're not like it. Like if you were going to grab something during that, like right as it went, and right before you were about to touch something, you'd be like, and not quite grab it, because for a second your body was like, ugh. And that's what has been happening every 10 minutes. Not as severe as the first week, but enough to where that whole body shock would almost make me fall if I was walking. Because in the same way you were about to touch something, like my foot would be about to touch the ground in the middle of each, step, and then zap, and then I would, like, people must have thought, like, is that guy drunk or insane, or is he dying? Oh wait, this is New York, so I don't care. Or like if I stop for that, I would stop for everything and never get home. So he's still standing now, and then go home. But yeah, man, I can't wait till the withdrawals stop. I went to the doctor. I found a primary care doctor. I have not had an annual physical in a decade more. I'm real nervous, dude. What's gonna happen? How many cancers do I have? I told him that too. I was like, listen, how long until I find out what the results are for, thyroid, liver, fucking any of the other shit? And he was like, I don't know, a couple days. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to rush you. I really am not. I just need to know mentally how many days am I going to be freaking out? Because the moment he drew blood, I was like, I'm dying. I don't mind getting my blood drawn either. I'll sit there and watch the needle go in. It's fine. But knowing where that blood was going, it was going to the "you have cancer" facility, which is anytime I get a test for even COVID tests, I was like, I have it. I have it. I don't feel it, but I have it, and I'm going to die from it. It's just, I can't help it. And I've always been that way. And it doesn't last too long. I'm not a hypochondriac, like every moment of every day. I feel like, oh, I have. But like when he was sitting there starting to like examine, he's like, I'm going to push down here and just breathe. I'm like, oh, so I have a tumor there. Push down here and breathe. There's one there. And I'm going to do the stethoscope and then breathe. I'm like, tumors all in my lungs. And those were the thoughts every single. And I was like, just, can you call me right away when you have them? He's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to email. He's an old school doctor. He says, no, I'm going to give you a call and we're going to talk about them. I'm like, oh, sweet. So those should come like tomorrow, I would say. And we'll find out if not having an annual physical for a decade is really going to be, was that dumb? Did I miss something that is now going to just suck me into the afterlife? Also, in my head, it makes no sense. In my head, it's like something's been brewing inside, and for some reason, it's the day I get the exam is the tail end of my life. And then he gets the results and goes, well, looks like you have 3, 2, 1, you're dying. That's how the result would go. It doesn't make sense that he would be like, hey, look, we caught something early. It would be like, well, we're lucky. Well, I'm lucky I caught this right as your, because this sentence is the last sentence of your life, comma. So you are dying, period, dead. That's how it goes in my head. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I am wrong. Yeah, that's that, man. I hope the results are. I've started doing more videos on just different things that I'm into in order to just have fucking. I'm trying to get I got to get my YouTube up. This most likely my special is going to end up there, and I need to just have more traffic heading into it. So I'm doing videos on shit I like and I actually have some knowledge about and am interested in, like coffee stuff and some style things. So those are all going up on the YouTube, and they're going up on TikTok and Reels and all that stuff. So I've done a few. I got a few more in the bank, and I'm about to shoot a few pretty exciting things that are all going to roll out on the YouTube. So get your asses over there, subscribe. More importantly, or equally as important, send it out. If you don't have like, oh, I'm not going to buy anything, like I'm not going to join the Patreon or whatever, fine. Sharing is also currency, all right? Spread the wealth. Just get it out there. Take it, be like, hey, dude, go subscribe to this. This guy's got a special coming out. That's how you stay in tune. Go to my website, subscribe to the mailing list. That's also an excellent way. And yeah, get in there, and I respond to the comments and stuff, as long as they're not, if in the first few words it's something dumb or negative, I literally don't finish reading it, and I don't respond. I over the years I've just trained my mind to, even if it's not comments of my own, I'll look through someone else's thing. It just sounds like it's going to be trolly. I'm like, ugh, and then move to the next one. And it's like, it's second nature now. I don't see it really. I just move right along to something constructive. So if you comment on stuff or have a question like, where'd you get the jacket, or what how do I wear this with that, or like, what are your suggestions on coffee brewing at home with it, whatever, or even stuff about the stories I'm telling about the store or wherever else. Get in there and, we'll start a conversation. And to really get deep, to really have a, a back and forth with all that stuff, Patreon. That's where that will happen. You have way more like access, and we can really get into some stuff, which I love. I don't mind doing. I think it's fun. I think it's like a good way to like connect with fans and talk about shit I would be talking about anyway with friends and stuff. So there you have it. I hope you like the new angles. This is an LA Gear jacket, by the way. Where's the bam, dude? Look at that. Look at that. I'll do a video on these like old school like athletic workouty things and what brands are like fuck overdone, don't waste your money, and what are some cool ones that for all we know in 6 months are going to be the ones where it's like everyone's buying them. So it's just like see what's cool, see what's hyped, and you can find a way to get a version of that and carve your own path, do your own thing. Because otherwise you're just going to look like a fucking mannequin. Like these people that are like, I have all the answers to... Just because it's on a blog or a YouTube or a TikTok doesn't mean it's not. Everyone's already doing it by the time you got it. And then, everyone just ends up looking like a fucking mannequin. And I don't like that. Anyway, for more on that, YouTube, TikTok, you know the drill. You know the drill. All the links are in the description below. So get on there. See you later.